Information Technology and General Services Committee for Tuesday, August 22nd, 2017. Mr. Clerk, do we have any speaker cards for general public comment or multiple agenda items?
John White, City Clerk. We do not have any speakers cards on general comment or multiple item comment.
Okay, then we will go ahead and close general public comment. We will, why don't we go ahead and take items 3 through 6, 8 to 11, and 13 to 20 on consent?
No objection.
No objection, then that'll be the order. We're also going to continue item number 12.
Okay.
And that'll take us to our first item of business.
Item 1, a verbal report from the General Manager, Department of General Services, relative to the department's current programs and future priorities.
Good afternoon. Madam Chair, members of the ITA GST Committee, it's indeed a great pleasure and honor to be with you today to update you on current and future projects within Department of General Services. And 5 of the areas we'll be covering briefly will be our SMS system that was replaced with the FMS system, the asset management system, the vehicle management system, also energy and water conservation, and also a brief discussion on electric vehicle infrastructure. The first area is SMS. We replaced the SMS system, which is our procurement module, which is about 15, 20 years old, and it went live on July 10th of this year. We trained close to about 5,000 users. And some of the systems that we have implemented is what they call the vendor self-service portion of it, which allows the vendors to maintain account information, receive electronic payments, and other activities there, which reduces a lot of paperwork, which we think is very good. And also we implemented a portion as relates to warehouse inventory. Our staff now has implemented a mobile handheld devices using barcoding technology to accurately issue equipment and supplies, the things and information they can have right there on that particular time versus waiting a number of days that we had with our past system. And what we're looking to do for 17-18 is continue hosting the walk-in assistance centers to help users in the new system where there's any issues or whatever, they can come in and discuss. And we think it will take about 4 to 6 months to work all the bugs out because it's a very large system and you're dealing with a very large clientele, but we think within 4 to 6 months everything should be all ironed out and working forward to there. And also this year, we're looking to implement online bidding. Before, bidding was basically the vendor would arrive at the City Hall South and submit a written bid, where now they can be done online, which we hopefully would increase the number of vendors that we have participating in our purchasing and also automating our system. If you have any questions by SMS.
Yes, Mr. Royster, thank you so much. My question actually, are any of the proprietaries participating in this, or is it exclusively just our general, some of our general operating departments?
This particular one is I think, specific to GSD customers.
Just GSD?
Yeah, not DWP or Harbor or whatever. It's specific for GSD.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions on SMS? If not, we'll go to asset management. We implemented the asset management property modular back in June of this year. The property data in is 1,000 properties under GST's jurisdictions and 400 properties under recreation and parks. And also we have close to 9,800 parcels and properties in the system. It's probably the first system that the information is centralized in one system, where we have the ability to go and look up information on the airport, DWP, the harbor, GSD, and different, where we've never had that before. Each group used to have their own separate system. Now, with the assistance of the mayor's office, we're able to implement the system where we have information on most of the departments in the city. And the task that we really are looking for next year is to making sure that it's data cleansing, making sure the information is accurate, because the most important thing on the system is to make sure that we put the accurate information in there. And also we're looking also to interface with other systems like the GIS, the ZEMAS, and also with eTime. And also in 2017-18, we're also implementing the operation and maintenance system for our building maintenance, where we can account for all equipment, work orders, and also creating a system where individuals can send requests for building maintenance versus making calls, and we can track it that way, which we think is a very excellent system. And also the mayor's office, I think, just recently released a news release where some of the information at this point is available to the public, where the movie industry, the different people are looking for nonprofits or vacant property can access that system and see what's available in the city, which has never been available to the citizens in the history of the city. And we think this is a very positive move toward maintaining and managing our assets in the city of Los Angeles. Any questions concerning the asset management system?
Madam Chair, just a quick one. One of the first motions I introduced when I was on this committee 4 years ago was to get an inventory, complete inventory of all city-owned properties. And so my question would be, the 1,000 or so general services that are under general services, the 400 that are under rec and parks, the 9,800 parcels in the system, is that a complete inventory of all properties owned by the city of Los Angeles?
That's all the list that.
Excuse me. Let's let the interruption happen.
Okay.
Okay, now.
It's a list of all properties that were submitted to us by all the departments. No, the thousands are ones that we control. And I think the phase two is that the information that we're getting from DWP, the airport, is to cleanse that information and make sure it's accurate. Because there are some
the proprietary departments, we haven't yet received those reports?
No, we receive the information. We're just working with them to cleanse the information and make sure it's accurate. So the information is in the system. It's making sure the data is cleansed and that it's accurate.
And then to follow that up, first of all, great work. That's fantastic. In terms of the entertainment industry, do they have as good of access as anyone else in terms of becoming aware of the parcels that they might be able to use for location filming purposes, et cetera?
I think they have access to it. I think what we need to do, work with them, is to identify in the system what sites are probably best for them to look, because there are thousands.
Right.
And what we probably can do, the ones that we frequently use for movie theaters or motions, and like the movie industry,
right,
is to identify those and highlight those. So when they go in the system, they can pull out, okay, here's the 100 top sites that are being used for movies, so they don't have to dread through all that information.
For parking of trucks and things like
right.
that. Okay, yeah, if my whole vision was to lead to that
right.
place where they could simply log on and say, all right, well, we can film in San Pedro because there's this city property where we can do our staging of vehicles near the location where we're going to shoot. Okay, well, good. I like where that's headed.
Sure. I think also we can do is sit down with them and provide training to the system. So, when you come into the system, especially if you're looking for movies or whatever locations, this is what particular item you look at and whatever. The same thing where I think we're also doing this year, sitting down with each council office, training them into this new system, because we have an interim system, which is called EPP. And I think most 13 to 15 council officers have been trained, because usually when a new council office come in, the first thing they ask me is about their vacant property, where now they have the accessibility to where they can look at it themselves, different versions of it, what's available, what libraries, what fire stations in their district, so they can make decisions based on that, versus asking for a paper list.
Terrific. Because, colleagues, one of the historical issues with film locations, et cetera, is that the industry sticks with what it knows. And so I've always felt that if we could daylight
right.
the amount of city properties, city parking lots, city structures, city, you name it,
right.
that it would open up a whole world of possibilities for location filming, so that's not all concentrated in
right.
the few specific areas that are sometimes overburdened, quite frankly. So this is great news.
And two, we think it was good about the system, when it's totally complete, each property, there will be a picture, whatever, so they can basically look at it versus before going out and really making a physical trip out there to look at, so you get pictures of what's going on.
Wonderful. I think this information will be very helpful to Film LA.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, just on the asset or on any of the items?
He was just talking. He was just covering that second one. But if you want
Well, just as far as that one goes, I mean, I agree, and the filming piece is important. I did a thing in my district. We did a location event and just brought out location scouts to all the different sites in the district, city-owned and non-city-owned, and I recommend doing that. 'Cause it's a good way to try to incentivize the filming out in the districts. But,
Right.
And the permanent system is coming online. Is there a timeline on that?
Excuse me?
The interim asset management system is live, but the
Yeah.
permanent database, when is that happening?
The permanent, right now, we have, I think it's about a couple of thousand properties online today that you can go in and assess there. It's going to take, in phases, because right now I think we've mostly completed with GSD and recreational parks. Now we're working along with, the airport, DWP, and other departments to make sure the information and data has been cleansed before we put it out and available to them. Hopefully, a lot of it will be done by this year.
Great.
Okay, the next area we were talking about will be the vehicle management system, which system was implemented close to back in 1980, and we're upgrading that system. The software has been installed, and we're working together with LAPD and the fire department and ITA on this system. And this particular implementation should be completed, go live in June of 2018, so that should be completed there. The next area of discussion is water and energy conservation. This past year, as it relates to water, we've implemented some projects that have saved close to 12.3 million gallons in water annually based on what we've done. During the past 3 years, based on some of the retrofits and measures we've taken, we estimate that we'll save about 37.3 million gallons of water over the last 3 years as it relates to water. When it comes to energy, we've reduced energy based on our estimates for this past year, about 5 million kilowatts savings there. And for the last 3 years, I think we've probably saved about 13.3 million there. And what we're really concentrating now on is on cooling towers, because a lot of the low-hanging fruit, like toilets, faucets and whatever, we've achieved those, because the cooling towers use a tremendous amount of water. If you don't catch leakage and whatever like that, you could lose millions of gallons of water a year. And what we've done, we've put on meters onto our cooling towers to make so we can monitor to make sure exactly if there's any leaks, we can look at that and take care of that.
Madam Chair, I have a question that I should know the answer to, but don't. The cooling tower's water?
Yes.
Do you use potable water for that?
Yes.
I wonder if there's a way to use
What we're doing, we can work with DWP on that. What we're doing right now, we have a pilot program where we're using this equipment where it's going to reduce like corrosion or different types of contaminants that you would have in the cooling towers, which will reduce the amount of water you were using in a cooling tower. We're doing a pilot on City Hall. We anticipate that will save us 500,000 gallons of water on that. I said we can have discussions with WP and see what's the options in using the other type of water, maybe recyclable water.
The reason I say that is something that's very topical. Recently, LADWP completed a piping project from near the Los Angeles River in the 13th to the Silver Lake Reservoir. And it's groundwater, not non-potable groundwater. And there's an immense supply of that to make sure that the reservoir has water in it indefinitely. So I was just curious to see if those conversations...
Sure. We can have a conversation and see if that's an option for our cooling towers, and be more than happy to look at that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions on energy conservation? Okay. The EV infrastructure, back in June, we prepared a comprehensive report that was submitted to the mayor and council for approval on our plan for implementing the EV infrastructure. In the budget for 2017-2018, we got $4.9 million for electric vehicles. We're looking to, at City Hall and City Hall East in the Civic Center this year, to install about 84 EV chargers, because there seems to be a tremendous demand for EV chargers in the Civic Center. And also looking at other additional sites like at district council offices, libraries, different lots around the city that we can assist in putting in these charges for individuals that have that. So that's my basic presentation. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Colleagues, any addition? Yes, Mr. Blumenthal.
Thank you. On the EV chargers, are they paid, or are they for the end user? Are they free, or are they paying, and is it cost recovery?
What we're doing now, we have a EV task force, and what the task force will be doing, we're putting these policies together. And as far as I understand, the systems that will be installed will be capable of charging for using those chargers.
Because this comes up a lot when we talk about the EVs. Is I don't know. I don't understand how we can't scale them faster, in the
Right.
sense that if for the ones that are charged, I've heard where people are paying. It's one thing if it's our policy to subsidize the workers in a building, and that's great, and I support that. But if they're out on the street, or they're public facing, and you're able to recover the charge, why doesn't that pay for itself? What's the ROI on it?
Right.
Is it going to be paid for in 5 years or something? And in that case, then theoretically it should be unlimited in terms of being able to. It's just a finance question, not a financial question.
Okay, we can look at that and come back with you on concerning, 'cause like I said, with some of the areas that we're putting them in also in public parking, and looking at that portion to see exactly what the return on investment is when it comes to know how many, on the average kilowatts they use when charging an EV, and what's the cost would it be to know how long it would take to repay for that installation.
On that same line, and I apologize, I missed a portion of the response on that. But as it relates to the charging, have you been looking at exclusively one particular product to consider for possible charging, if it is in fact something that you're going to opt to do? Because I know, like, for example, street lighting has been working with
Right.
ChargePoint
Right.
exclusively. I'm not sure if DWP has an alternate provider.
But I think it's we have a similar contractor,
Okay.
and then we have a contract on board right now, ready to go to. Because right now, what we're doing now, they're doing the design, because sometimes, especially at City Hall East, there's limited amount of electricity available there, so we have to make some modifications to make sure that the vital electrical needs are met before putting additional load on. But that's about very close to be completed.
Terrific. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, one additional question. One of the priorities in your strategic plan is to reduce workers' compensation, injuries, expenses. What are some of the strategies that are being implemented toward this goal? And as you know, it's something I ask in every opportunity, not just of you, but of every department.
What we've done in workers' compensation, we have two pilot programs, one with Fleet and one with our custodial group, which are large users of that. This past year, we were working with the personnel department with the workers' comp unit there. We've reduced workers' comp hours by 71%. And with Fleet, we did the similar thing last year before that and reduced about 41%. And based on the 5-year average for hours and claims, we're about 22% below what the average five-year average is when it comes to workers' comp hours and workers' comp claims. And what we do is try to get the people back to work, either on temporary work or work with workers' compensation to get them back to work as soon as possible. And the department as a whole has been extremely successful. And also we have our safety group. They go out and do inspections and follow up and make sure they happen. And what I do is make sure in my executive staff meeting, workers' comp is talked about every month. Frequently I go to we have a safety coordinator where I visit and have conversation where the people on the front line understand that it's a priority, and based on those practices, we've seen a substantial reduction in our workers' compensation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate the good work.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr.
Okay.
Oyster. Appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, item 2, please.
No general public comment on item 1?
We've already closed general public comment. We'll be taking multiple comment cards after item number 2.
Item 2, verbal report from the CAO relative to procedures and jurisdiction of the Municipal Facilities Committee.
Good afternoon. Bernice Hollins, Office of the CAO. For this item, I'll be representing the Municipal Facilities Committee. I wanted to start with just thanking this body for the opportunity to present on the significant roles that are served by the MFC and its staff. The MFC was formed in 1956 by council resolution. The body itself is comprised of the CAO as chair, the CLA, and a representative of the mayor's office. MFC, as the body is commonly referred to, meets on the last Thursday of each month, except for November and December due to the holidays. And it serves as the executive decision-making body for strategic planning issues that involve city property, leases, and now also economic development initiatives. The purview includes requests for new acquisitions, disposition of surplus properties, space assignments at existing municipal facilities, and also renovation or development of new facilities. We've touched on many of the major initiatives and new projects underway in the first presentation, but I'll just mention we're all very excited about the new asset management system and the resource tools that will give us both in terms of planning and just conducting day-to-day business. We're also proceeding with development of a new civic center building to replace Parker Center, and with that we hope to terminate leases, bring down our overhead costs, and also eliminate a lot of the waste that we're experiencing currently with just transportation costs between some of our buildings that are in more remote locations. We're also continuing to implement a master plan for the 115 yards and shops facilities that is controlled by about 5 different departments, heavily utilized by GSD and the Public Works Bureaus. We're also working on a new capital policy, refining what we currently have in place, and really trying to look at right-sizing our investment, both in terms of maintaining our existing assets, increasing the life cycle for those facilities, and strategically planning where we need new facilities to carry out our strategic initiatives and to basically be able to provide adequate service levels in the various local communities. Along with that, we continue to manage annual capital repair programs, again aimed at preserving the life cycle of our buildings. And we have many, many new capital projects, some of them moving in Channel 35 into its new home at El Pueblo. I could go on, but I won't. That's a general overview of the committee, the major work that is underway, and I'm more than happy to take up any questions at this time.
Thank you. I do have one question. So where are you in the timeline of your strategic planning for kind of relocating some of the staff assets and moving them here to our central kind of plan?
For the Civic Center, we have the environmental plan for Parker Center demolishing that facility has been approved. The CAO, along with CLA, the Council District 14, all the strategic planning partners, General Services, Bureau of Engineering, we meet on a biweekly basis to carry out the planning activities. So we are about, there's generally a 3-year target to complete construction. That's conditioned upon getting all the appropriate financing in place, but that's the rough time frame. So the phase that we're currently working on is just strategic planning, looking at where all of our departments are in kind of the peripheral buildings, both at Figueroa Plaza and at Public Works Building, Personnel Building, all these, like I said, off-centered Civic Center facilities. And we're actually working with a consultant to figure out, first of all, what the appropriate space standard is for the city going forward. Currently, we're using around a 200 to 250 space standard per individual that takes into account all of the support space that's needed in addition to the personal space that the individual occupies. So we're trying to look at industry practices and see if there's a better right size for our workforce, if there's additional space efficiencies. But the idea is to get the most efficient use of the new facility to bring as many of the important services that we want to have here very close to the Civic Center in the first phase. And then there's additional phases. There's at least 2 to 3 additional development phases where we would activate portions of the LA Mall for redevelopment and build a second facility. But we can come back with an actual focus report. And actually, there will be additional reports coming forward as we're working through the planning process for that project.
Right, that's going to be exciting to have it all kind of.
Definitely.
Everyone, I know Public Works Building is excited to try and be closer to City Hall, so this is an exciting endeavor for the city, for sure. Any questions? Or?
Quick question for you, Ms. Hollins. When do we expect to see tents around Parker Center so they start removing the asbestos before demolition?
I
Any sense of that?
don't have a firm answer for you, but we'll get back to your office. I just can't, yeah.
Out of curiosity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Blumenthal.
I have more of a sort of structural question, because you guys do a lot of great work and trying to
Thank you.
understand the Municipal Facilities Committee in terms of when it was created and does it have any authority as a committee, or is it just more of a collaborative body that allows the key entities to be able to work together in a more methodical way?
Generally, anything that has a funding implication beyond what has been approved in the budget would go through the MFC for an initial vetting process, but then it would still come to the council, the appropriate council committee for action. So for instance, if GSD receives funding every single year for leasing, but if we're adding a new lease, then that recommendation would be first vetted by municipal facilities to determine if it's appropriate use of city resources, and then the final recommendations would be vetted through the council committees before final approval through council. So it's a delegated authorities. It serves as really a steering committee to make sure that we're carrying out the priorities that council and the mayor set. But a lot of the actions, anything that has a financial connotation to it, is still referred through council bodies.
Okay. And was GSD ever part of it, or should?
GSD is a very active member of the committee. It's part of our working group, our ongoing staff. So there's just the 3 members, CAO, CLA, and mayor's office that serve on the body itself. However, BOE, general services, city attorney, all the city departments that are necessary to implement these projects, to carry it out, they work on an ongoing basis with our office. We meet on almost every project separately. So there's ongoing collaboration just to conduct our day-to-day business, as well as to bring forth the new initiatives and the major projects that we're working on.
So they come to the meetings, so to speak, but they're not voting members of the committee?
They're not voting members. They report to the committee.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're going to reopen multiple comment cards, and we have item 1, 2, and 7, Mr. Herman. You have 2 minutes.
Figure that. Don't give people no time to speak. You don't even have a clock on. You don't even have anything on. You don't even have fucking sign-in cards. I had to bring my own. It's fucked up. Right, Eric? It's fucked up. But let's stay on topic here. The topic is about homelessness. A service authority under LAHSA. It should actually be called the Jewish Foundations for fucking putting people on a tree to die. Because that's how I feel. There's no embetterment in housing in Los Angeles. Have you seen any embetterment in this? All I see is a fucking dark garden of homeless people encamped outside. The same way Bonin and that other dumb asshole from the valley out there like to see people struggle. Don't you get sick and tired of watching the homeless? Apparently not. You make $200,000 a year. You have nothing to worry about. But your stupid nonsense of political action of worthiness. Bunch of fucked up losers when it comes to dealing with the kiosk. Oh, you have to have a sign-in for the kiosk. Well, no one should have to sign in if you're homeless. You should give them goddamn keys to their apartment. Then you can say you've done a goddamn thing for the homeless. Do you get it, Bonin? Do you get it, O'Farrell? Or are you going to cry like a bitch and go to Miss Bose, B-O-A-S, Goodson, and put a TRO against all the homelessness for making a threat? They're not a threat. They're being opinionated. It's a fucked up system. And I'm here to voice on their behalf. Because you don't see homeless in here voicing their message. Because you don't let them in the building. You don't like the way they smell. You don't like the way they look. You don't like the way they dress. Right, Bloomfield?
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Item number 7.
Item 7, MFC Committee Report relative to authorizing the Department of General Services to negotiate and execute a new lease agreement with the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority for city-owned property located at 201 North Los Angeles Street, space 10D.
Good morning, John Michael Mendoza, General Services Department, Real Estate Services.
Good afternoon.
Here to, am I addressing any questions on this motion? Or?
Yeah, well, we'll give him a minute to exit the room.
Sure.
Just be nice to the dog. That's all I ask.
So we just had a question. I just had a question in terms of what the operating hours were going to be for the kiosk and what services were going to be offered.
The operating hours are going to be roughly 8 a.m. till around 6 p.m. It's going to be housed with LASA staff during normal business hours, so like 8 to 4:30-ish, and then after hours, 4:30 to about 6, maybe 7 o'clock. They haven't determined the exact time yet. We'll be staffed with volunteers that LASA works with, crisis response team, and volunteers from like USC. And these volunteers are trained in, providing homeless services and resources.
Okay, and how are you going to, I'm just trying to figure out what the flow of, what our audience is and whether or not it's going to be well publicized that there's going to be services now being offered out of this location and what people might anticipate in terms of what they would expect once they go into this
Right.
location.
So the mayor's office has a team that's going to work on the community engagement piece, and also part of the TI build out of the kiosk is going to have language and signage that is going to advertise homeless services and resource provided at the kiosk. Excuse me. So that's part of the plan to attract not only the homeless around City Hall and the area, but also people who are seeking services for their loved ones, their friends. So it's going to be part of a all-encompassing plan to.
So it's going to be a
attract those.
referral system coming out of that location?
Yeah, part of a referral system, but also, within the immediate area of City Hall, you have at any given time 10 to 20 to 30 people within 100 yards. But in addition, there's 3,500 plus homeless, Skid Row and the surrounding areas that we're going to hopefully attract to this area, not all at one time, but as a resource to be able to point them in the right direction for what they need, such as housing, food, and transportation.
Okay. Now, I just thought it was interesting. It was an interesting kind of, with the juice bar on one side, and then you have, it was just kind of, it felt like a little bit of a conflicting effort there. So I was just curious as to what the thinking was behind that particular location.
With the juice bar, that action has been more recent. So they've actually had that location leased for several years. They just never did the build out, and now they're kind of engaging in that. So it just kind of happens to be a coincidence that it's happening at the same time. I just address the reason for the switch with regard to item number 6. We switched the two parties to the separate kiosks. They're because the other kiosk has water, and so the juice drink people, it would have cost them like $75,000 just to connect water to the other kiosk, which it just made sense to switch them out.
Sure. Okay. Colleagues, are there any questions on this item? Yes, Mr. Blumenfeld.
So the kiosk will not be open on the weekends?
I'm unsure about that.
Seems like that might make sense to be open on
Yeah,
weekends.
I assume it will be. I just, in all my conversations, I can't recall if it will be exactly open on the weekends. I can get you an answer to that.
And when is LASA going to start to occupy the space?
As soon as the motion gets approved through council and we can fund the TIs and get it built out, we're looking at 3 to 6 weeks for the build out, and soon thereafter they would begin occupying the space.
Okay, and then the staff, are they going to be just sitting in the kiosk, or are they going to be able to walk around and do outreach?
They'll be able to do walk around and do outreach. So the plan is to have 2 to 3 staff members in the kiosk at one time. 1 or 2 can do community engagement during that time, and or other volunteers or staff members can do community engagement simultaneously. But the plan is to have 2 to 3 in there to provide actual services. And
Well, that's good. So it's going to be, it's like more of a base than just a limited, because I was a little worried about it becoming a orphan facility, so to speak, if you don't have people out there. But, and then if for some reason it's not proving effective, is there an early termination, if, in terms of the 5-year lease, or is there any sort of,
the city always reserves a right to terminate a lease within 30 days, 30 to 60 days, depending on the type of lease. I believe this one will be 30 days. So, yeah. But it will probably come as an instruction from the mayor's office after they kind of vet how well it's working.
yeah, I mean, hopefully it's going to be working great and all that, but just,
Right.
you always want to be prepared.
Right, and in terms of additional security, given that that is going to be happening, have there been any considerations for that?
There's been discussions about panic button type of device, but with the security desk right there at City Hall East, they don't seem to be too worried about it. There's always law enforcement personnel walking by, and so we haven't made plans to install a panic button, but that may come at a later date.
Yeah, well, especially if it is operating on the weekends, then you don't have that same level of activity and police presence that you do during the week. So that would be a good consideration for that.
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions, colleagues? No? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Seeing no objections? We'll go ahead and approve. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe we've taken care of all business? Okay, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. No.
Put some time into that artwork. Like with Nancy Pelosi.